What's up, guys? This is Nick from Arch City Poker, and in today's video, I'm going to be reviewing a No Limit 25 6-max zone session. I've paused the footage on specific hands where I can talk about some concepts that I want to talk a little bit more about. Probably about 20 or 30 seconds worth of pausing on a few hands, so we'll get to those, but otherwise I'll try to keep up with the action. It's quite fast with zone, and I don't know if I need to upgrade Camtasia, but I just can't pause during the narration, which is just absolutely ridiculous. So let's get into the action on the left table. Under the gun +1, open small. I think a flat with ace-10 in the big blind is totally standard here. I think he needs to be opening bigger as far as the structure of the game. I used to open smaller, but I've started to realize that it doesn't make sense. I need to raise larger and get more money in. Seeing flops is just not productive, as the rake will kill you at this level. So I paused it here, and the reason for this is that he bets third pot, and as far as minimal defense goes, I need to defend with pretty much over 75% of my range, probably closer to 80%. King 3-3, this is going to be one of my better hands usually, actually, so this hand definitely fits in as a call. A lot of you guys will overfold in this spot. Just be mindful that you need to defend with a lot of your range in that spot, and these better ace-high hands would definitely fit in. I don't see a need to lead the river here. I think I have good showdown value. I don't think a turn lead would make a whole lot of sense either. It just doesn't accomplish a whole lot for my hand. And right table real quick, you guys can see I'm opening sixes. I'll get to that hand in a sec. Okay, so I pause it again here, and this is the flip side of minimal defense frequency. So now he bets 3.5x. And now I need to defend pretty much like 25% of my range, a little bit less than that, I believe. It's a little late at night, so I might be off with the math, but I think that's about right. But you guys get the idea. I don't need to defend with as much of my range here to prevent myself from being exploitable. I think the thing about this pool is this is not a bluff often enough anyway, so I think I can easily fold this hand. But if this was a tough opponent, I think I would need to call. I'm definitely calling all my kings, and then possibly stuff like maybe jacks or tens if I have them. But against players in this pool, I think I might only be calling with hands like maybe king jack plus, maybe king queen plus. I'm not 100% sure, but I know it's not a whole lot of my range. It's really a small percentage because they're just not often bluffing enough. So interesting spot. Sixes, you guys saw, I c-bet small with a block bet on that 8-4 deuce board, and I think that's totally fine. I get some equity denial and some thin protection. Left table, open eights on the button, 6 deuce deuce board, big blind just check folds. I went with block again. I think that's kind of an exploitive play to get him to defend with, I guess, the worst parts of his range. I do think, though, that in a tougher game, I would actually bet half pot there, as I'm going to get more action than usual from the big blind, as on the button, my range is definitely wider, and so I can get value in that spot and go with a half pot sizing and strategy. Right table, I flatted fives after the cutoff open and the button flatted. That was not a good board for me to continue on. I block a lot of their bluffs, and I don't have showdown value on pretty much almost every run out, so I think that's a good fold. Left table, I decide to raise the limp of the small blind with queen 8 of hearts in the big blind. And this board definitely smashes my range much harder than his. I wouldn't mind a block here and just bet my whole range that way. I think I could bet larger with my better hands, obviously, and then polarize my range a little bit. I think block is fine here and merge my range a little. I don't think I need to bet on the turn here. I don't think it'll accomplish a whole lot. I'm not sure a 9 will call there. And once he checks here, I don't think he ever has an ace. I think I can go for value with my queen here and get a 9 to call, possibly. Yeah, even though he has jack 10, I don't really like check back there. I do like sizing it up against better opponents, and queen 8 won't fit into my value range so much. Well, I don't know. Actually, I think it might. So I don't know. That's probably a mistake, but I think because of how capped he is, that needs to be a value bet in that spot, and definitely like more in an exploitative sense. But I think even against tough opponents, that could be a spot to block and bet a little small with my queen there. Right table, ace king under the gun, standard open. I think you can go either way here. I think I have enough showdown value. You can check. I think if I had the ace of hearts or king of hearts, I'd probably bet more frequently, but I think it's fine. Left table, the pre-flop raiser and the player in position check back this flop. I think that caps them tremendously. I think I can go for value with my queen 10, possibly go for 2 streets. So another spot where I pause it on the right table, facing 6th pot. We're going to talk about minimal defense frequency. I'm going to be defending with a large portion of my range. I only need about 12% equity against this bet. That's pretty much about what I have with ace-king in this spot, so I do like a call here and decide on the river, essentially, but I don't think he's bluffing often enough. Like, I don't think this is ever a hand that's worse than ace-king, so I think I'm right at break-even with this call. I could definitely call with straight draws and flush draws. I think I might raise those a little more often with no showdown value and attack him, attack his weak bet size. I think I could do that with this hand as well, but obviously if I know the ace is coming, I can get him to put more money in then. So he checks, I bet pot, get him to call. It's very standard. Almost a huge mistake on this left table. It looks like I almost went all in on accident. Yeah, and it looks like I'm showing you guys. I'm like, yep, that could have been a huge mistake, but I'd go ahead and open with ace 10 of diamonds. Very easy open. I actually noticed that I'm opening the 3x here. I've been opening pot, which is 85 cents, and like I said, because of the rake structure, and I've been realizing that how high the rake actually is and how much it kills these games and these videos that I'm doing for you guys, I want to play as if I'm playing for actual money here and like I need this. So I think it's good to play and in accordance to the game format and structure, I guess. If I was in a tough player pool on the left table, I don't think I'd c-bet this board all that often. I don't hit it that well. I think my opponent in position could put me in a really tough spot. But I block a lot of their continues. I have the gutter. I think there's a lot of turn cards I can barrel profitably, so I do like the c-bet in this player pool. I think players will overfold, essentially. So far we've talked about minimal defense frequency, and basically the smaller they bet, the more of your range you need to defend with calls and raises. The larger they bet, especially if they're over pot, you don't need to defend with as much of your range. In these small player pools, though, when they bet super large, they're going to be very value heavy, so you can exploit them by essentially overfolding. Left table, even though he bets about quarter pot here, yeah, see, I don't like calling with the 6. I'll get to that in a minute. So on the right, guys, this is a spot where I've been not squeezing when I usually would. I think that the under the gun open and then the button flat it's a spot where it hasn't been as profitable. I don't need to balance that spot as much, and I'll get into that later. But that hand on the left, I don't need to defend with the 6 on the turn there. I think I have more pairs and better hands in my range. So if we're talking about minimum defense frequency against, or especially in this pool, I don't think he's bluffing often enough with that small bet, so I just need to let that hand go. So that was a mistake calling on the turn. And here we go on the right table. So I'm 3-betting ace-8 of spades here, though. I have position. I'm facing a later position open, so that's going to be a little more profitable. I like that spot exploitively in this pool. And what I was getting at is that I think I normally would squeeze that ace-5 of diamonds from small blind to balance out when I'm going to squeeze with my value hands, but I don't really need to do that as often in this pool. I'm not going to attack early position opens as often when I'm out of position, in the blinds I should say, but I will attack late position opens, and I think you guys will see that later in the video. So left table, I flat. You could 3-bet pre, big blind versus small blind with 9-5 suited here. He bets third pot. I think call is fine. I actually like small raise too, because against these small bets, when they're going to be a little more merged, I think that you need to defend with raises a little more often and play tougher. And so I don't mind a small raise there. And especially when you know that you're going to turn 2 pair, then go ahead and try to get more money in the pot. So yeah, I don't mind that. I think it's possible that it's standard to call, but I don't mind a small raise kind of for like more protection. And there are some, I think he's going to overfold the turn a lot, so I don't mind playing a little more aggro on the flop and in position against these players. I think it'll work out pretty nice. Looks like a couple easy folds here. Not going to go into those too often, or into too much depth, I should say, just because This format is already fast enough, and I already find myself having trouble keeping up with it sometimes, especially when I can't pause during the narration, so yeah, I'll try to keep up though. Right table, I think this is fine. I think this could be a little bit too loose for a lot of you guys. I think you need to improve your post-flop skills and learn how to play in position a little bit more. But if you're advanced with your game and you're very good post-flop, I think this is fine, especially in a 6-max format, especially against players that you have a skill edge against. And in a tougher pool again, I do think I'd be checking this board a good amount to my opponent, but I'm just going to go ahead and kind of exploitively bet. I think I can definitely get value from worse. Again, a spot where this card hits my opponent's range better than mine, I think I would go for check call against all my tough opponents. Maybe mix in a check raise sometimes. Yeah, I think sometimes a check raise, but I think just going for a bet there again is totally fine. I think these guys are just too passive, and they're going to pretty much let me know where they're at in the hand. Sometimes they'll even spew, and I have a hand that I can bet call with, so I think betting's totally fine. So again, you guys see on the left here, I have an opportunity to 3-bet. This player is opening small in the cutoff, so I do like a 3-bet with his hand here. I think you can definitely flat if you want, but I like 3-betting more often than not. And I do like small bet here. Block, I think this is totally fine. Gets value from his worst pairs, like his pocket pairs, maybe some ace-high stuff, maybe some gutters and whatnot. When he raises small, I need to defend against that. I think that could be a lot of different hands. I think I'll be check calling small bet on this turn, exploitively folding to pot. Right table, I'm not going to talk about that hand too much. I open, then I c-bet. I might get back to it in a sec. So yeah, he bets half pot. I think calling is fine here. It's close in this pool. And I think it'd probably be a check fold on the river. Okay, so I can see that I've paused this spot. He needs to value bet here. I think that if he's going to have bluffs in his range, then this hand needs to be a value bet. As far as what I would call with against a tough opponent, I'd rather have ace-9 than jacks or queens, because jacks and queens block a lot of his bluffs, and tens also, actually. So I actually like ace-9 because it doesn't block a lot of his bluffs. And against a tough opponent, this would, I think, have to be a call against most sizings. But I do think my opponent in that hand was a little too passive on the river and should have gone for value of some sort. Right table, so going to be an easy bet. Yeah, looks like I bet about 3/4 pot. I think that's fine. I can get value from worse. And yeah, I've been folding some of those smaller pairs on the left. I don't want to see as many flops with how the rake is, so I've been actually slashing those from early position. Oh, wow, okay, so this is an interesting spot. Oh, yeah, I do have it paused. I go for the overbet shove of about, it's not quite 2x. It's interesting because I need to determine what he could call with. I think in this pool, I can definitely get worse kings to call, like king 10, king 9, king 8. Get lucky if he has like queen jack, that will definitely call. But I think that maybe for my whole range, a block might work better if I ever want to value bet just king X in that spot. So kind of an interesting spot, but I think players, I think I try to make it look bluffy, and sometimes they will call the huge bet with worse there, but more often than not, they're often, I guess, overfolding. So I don't know. That could be a spot where I need to size it down. I would get more value out of a smaller sizing, but I think it's fine to throw that in there sometimes. Left table, this is a very easy, large bet spot. I flop middle set. I don't block top pair. I can definitely get these guys to stack off very easily in this spot, so I want to start getting a lot of money in right now before any scare cards come and scare them away from the pot. And a very awesome sight. Player shoves on me. Snap call, he never has a better hand, I don't think, in that spot. He never has aces. And win a pretty nice pot. I think there was a hand on the right where I had threes. Nothing too interesting happened. You guys can obviously rewind and go back and look through some of the hands that maybe I missed and kind of decide for yourself what you would do in that spot, and try to think about what the player's ranges are, how you would construct your, let's say your calling and your bluff raising ranges. So I think that's something interesting you guys can do, is go back through these yourself and decide what you would do in spots, because everything that I'm doing insane in these videos. It's just merely a bunch of suggestions. And I do suggest you take my advice, but I think you guys can come up with some strategies of your own and some your own lines and see if my stuff, my strategies make sense. And that's the whole point of reviewing these sessions, is it helps you guys kind of think about that kind of stuff. So left table, I 3-bet from out of the big blind against the button open. The 4-betting ranges in this player pool are super value heavy. That his range is going to smash king queen suited there, so easy fold for me. That's why it's fun making these videos, because these guys, I wouldn't say it's fun. I like being challenged, but it is kind of fun knowing exactly where you're at pretty much most every time, and being able to just kind of click buttons and make money, but, well, make small amounts of money. But yeah, I don't know. I don't mind the zone poker function. I think it's cool to be able to show you guys lots of hands in a short period of time, so I think that's definitely fine. Flat threes on the right out of the big blind. Going to end up being an easy check fold. I just don't have the showdown value. I don't do well on most runouts. I don't think it makes sense to call there. There's a lot of other hands I can either call or check raise with that are better than that. So, all right, couple of king jack suited hands. Looks like I open on the left table. Should be opening on the right table. Both very standard. Button flats on the left. I think either way is fine. I think if I had king jack of clubs, I would definitely c-bet more often. I think in this pool, a lot of times they'll check back with nothing, and then I can delay c-bet. So kind of check to them more often than not and kind of see what they'll do if I miss. Right table, just c-bet and get a fold, standard stuff. But yeah, there's definitely spots where if it's close, I might check to them because they'll be pretty straightforward. Kind of let me know exactly where I'm at a lot of times. I'm not saying I'm going to check fold every time I check to my opponent, because that just means like they have something, but kind of depends on board texture and what I see the player pool doing, and then I try to adjust to that. Left table, 3-betting ace queen. I think it's fine to do this. I think you can flat also, but I think in this pool more often than not I'm going to be a little more aggro as I see players overfolding the 3-bets, so I'm going to take that into consideration and have that be one of my exploits, one of my adjustments essentially. But like I said, I think flat's totally fine against an EP open there as well. Queen jack will be an open if it gets folded to me. Yeah, I think it's a fold. I think king queen could be a squeeze. Queen jack could be, but I think it's getting a little wide, and I don't think I need to have that hand in my range in this pool necessarily. Even though I said they do overfold 3-bets, that's going to be when they are out of position. And I think my hand plays decently post-flop in that spot, so it's close. You could argue it either way, but I don't think I need to have that combo in there. I think it's getting a little wide. Queen 10 on the right table. Pretty easy check call spot against the button if the big blind folds. Yeah, super standard here against half pot to check call. He could be betting with a lot of his range, maybe most of his range, just getting checked to on the button in that spot. Yeah, sizing's going to matter here on the right. Against a little bit less than half pot, this is a very easy call again. And then probably check the side river. I just don't think players are bluffing the river enough, so have to see what he bets. Yeah, facing half pot, I just don't see this line being a bluff often enough. It's close. Against a tough opponent, that needs to be a call, but I think in this player pool, that's one of the exploits where I save a good amount of money on the river, so that's one of the main points of all these videos, guys. You want to get a good grasp on your player pool and what players are doing in spots. I just don't see enough bluffs with that line, so that's a spot where I'm saving a lot of money. But against tough opponents in tough pool, that's a spot where you could be losing a lot of money if you guys are overfolding. So consider that for sure. Right table, I go with a squeeze. I don't hate it. Like I said, in this player pool, I think that's going to get more folds more often than not. I think a flat's fine too. On 8 deuce deuce, I would assume I bet small here. I just don't think players will defend optimally against this. They will either overfold or they'll flat and then overfold the turn, so I don't mind this. If I get raised, then it's usually an exploitable fold. yeah, I don't think I'm kind of glad he raised because I wanted to talk about that. I just don't think he doesn't really have any natural bluffs on 8 deuce deuce. I don't think he's attacking a 3-better like that in this pool. Players just don't do that. So I think it's a very nice spot to go ahead and dump it to what is probably a hand like maybe 10s or 9s, I would say. I don't think he's doing that with a pair under the 8s, but I could be wrong. Could be a protection raise with some pairs, but I just don't feel it's happening often enough to where I need to defend against it. And then that's where we get into minimal defense frequency again, and how that just doesn't really apply. I only wanted to bring that up essentially so you guys understand the term, and if you start improving in your games and you play against tougher opponents, you need to understand that you need to defend with, specific amounts of your range against specific bet sizings. But in these player pools specifically, they're just often going to be never bluffing in certain spots, and you don't have to worry about minimal defense frequency. So keep that in mind for sure. So here's a spot where I do decide to squeeze a baby suited ace. This, again, is against a cutoff open and a button flat, and not against an early position open and then a flat. I think that will be much more profitable than the other way around, essentially, where I said I'm not attacking these early position opens as often when I'm out of position. So I think that spot's definitely a little more profitable, and they are overfolding their wider ranges, so I do like squeezing more often in that spot. Pocket nines, yeah, definitely going to be a 3-bet here. I mean, you can flat if you have a mixed strategy in that spot where you 3-bet. Sometimes you flat sometimes, but I like 3-betting against the buttons wide range and then getting the big blind out. Nines plays much better heads up, especially from out of position. On Ace-King 3, it's a board that definitely hits my range much harder than his. However, with my specific hand, I don't think betting does a single thing. You could argue a small block and maybe get stuff like worse pairs or gutters to maybe call, but I just think that, yeah, I just think checking this thing the whole way down. And what am I thinking about there? I don't think a block would do anything, so. Yeah, and I mean, that's fine. I don't think a bet accomplishes anything at any point, really, so that's going to happen sometimes. You just have to understand showdown value. What does your bet accomplish? I've talked about that in a lot of my videos. Think about the consequences of why you're betting. Think about your combo in a sense of, if you want to get a little more advanced, what do you block? Do you block some hands that he would call with? Do you block some of his bluffs, essentially? So that's going to be some more advanced stuff that you guys can get into once you start to really, I guess, I wouldn't say master, but really start to become much more sound fundamentally. That's, I guess, what I'm getting at. Ace-7 of hearts in the cutoff, very easy open. Still opening to 3x. Kind of surprised. Maybe after this session I switch, because I've been, like I said, opening to pot in these games. But yeah, I don't mind a check. I think betting's fine against the wide big blind range. Get a little bit of equity denial. But yeah, I think just trying to get the showdown at this point is fine on the left. Right table, go with the squeeze. Now, this player is in early position, but a min raise I've noticed in this pool pre-flop is usually wide, like a lot wider. So I'm kind of treating that as like a late position open, I would assume. Now, I think ace-queen's a fine hand to go ahead and squeeze in the spot. Obviously a very good flop. I think I can go with, I think I can go with multiple different sizings here. Yeah, half pot's fine. If I do this, then I can't be betting as many combos that I would like to block with, such as I think something like nines, for example. That wouldn't be a bet in that spot with that sizing, but ace-queen's obviously going to be a bet, a hand that's very near the top of my range. And that looks like it's going to be it for the video, so if you guys have any questions or comments about any of the concepts I've talked about, go ahead and let me know. But until next time, this is Nick from Arch City Poker. Take care.